Hey guys, so in today's video I wanted to do a book tag, and I've seen this kind of going around BookTube recently and I haven't really been tagged by anyone, but just thought it sounded interesting and wanted to do it myself. So the book tag is called I Am The Reader tag, and I have all the questions and answers written down on here. I was watching other people do this video and thought I'd like to do it myself. So yeah, the first question is, choose one word that describes you as a reader. And I found this one quite difficult to answer. I thought about this for a little while, but in the end I decided to go with travelling or traveller. And I picked this word because I feel like when you read so many different books, you almost travel to those places yourself. You know, you can kind of imagine these other worlds, and even like, you know, other countries, you can kind of read about them and you feel like you're travelling there with the characters. And I read books from all around the world, all different places, some fictional places, some real places, and I just feel like, yeah, you can kind of absorb yourself in travelling to these different places, and that's the word I decided to pick to describe me as a reader. I like to go different places, and I also find, you know, reading I find very relaxing and very comforting. I do it as something to relax myself after a hard day's work, so that was another word that I was thinking about picking. So the second question is, what's the very first book you fell in love with? Again, this is quite hard to answer. A lot of these questions are because I have so many different answers for them. This was hard to pick because I had so many books that were my favourites as a child. Of course, the Harry Potter series, absolutely loved them. I really enjoyed them as a child. I still reread them to this day. Also, Housemoving Castle by Diamond Jones. That was probably the first book that I really loved, all the characters and the world and everything. I've recently reread that. And yeah, I think, but the first book I can really remember, my mum used to read me books. I think it was like The Faraway Tree, or those kind of fairy tale Enid Blyton stories. Yeah, The Faraway Tree was the one that really kind of stood out in my mind. I no longer have a copy of it, unfortunately, but I may have to pick them up again. It's just about these group of children, I think they were siblings or friends, go into a woods and they find this magical tree where you climb up, and each branch there's like a different character, and they can travel to different places. And it was just a great book. I really enjoyed that, and that really kind of sticks out in my mind as a book that I really loved when I was a child. I used to love it when my mum would read it to me. The third question is hardback or paperback. I love both, and I love them both for different reasons. I love paperbacks because I feel like they're, obviously you can fit more of them on your shelf. They're easier to read because you can just read them wherever. Hardbacks, if they're large books, can sometimes be quite heavy. They're also cheaper, so that's why my answer is going to be paperbacks, because for those two reasons, they're easier and cheaper to read, and you can fit more on your shelf. However, I do also love hardbacks. I do own quite a few hardbacks. I think they look nicer on the shelf. You know, like if you have, like, say you're reading a series and you collect the whole series in hardback, they just look really nice. And I feel like they can take a bit more wear and tear. Like if I throw a paperback book in my bag, I feel like the pages can get torn or creased up. Whereas with a hardback, I don't really worry so much because the pages aren't going to get as damaged. So yeah, I think I would have to pick paperback overall, but I do also love hardbacks. The fourth question is, how has reading shaped your identity? I think reading shaped my identity quite a bit. I've had quite a reading journey. When I was a child, I didn't like reading. I loved stories. I loved people, like I said, my mum reading me books. I used to have audiobooks. But actual reading myself, I'm dyslexic, so when I was a child I very much struggled with reading. I was always a lower reading grade than everyone else in my class until I was much older, when I got better. So it's kind of shaped me in different stages. Like when I was younger, I used to dread it. I used to actually panic when we used to have to read stuff out in class because I couldn't, so I used to have a lot of anxiety about it. Then throughout my teenage years and young adult years, it kind of made me determined. It made me, because like I said, I love stories, so I wanted to read these stories. And you know, my sister would tell me, or I'd hear about all these great books my friends are reading, and I really wanted to read them. So yeah, I kind of saw it as a challenge when I was a teenager to get good at reading. And now as an adult, I obviously really enjoy it, and I do it to relax. So I feel like it has kind of shaped my identity in a way. It kind of younger gave me anxiety. In my teenage years, it's made me very determined, and then in my adult years, it's made me it's a way I relax with, and it's why I've made this channel and everything. I just love reading. So yeah, that's my answer to that question. Where was it up to? The 5th question. What book do you read when you want to feel comforted? Harry Potter. I love the Harry Potter books. I think they have great characters. It's got great stories, great morals in the book. And yeah, it's just like very nostalgic, and it just makes me happy when I read it because I love the characters so much. And again, also Housemaid Castle. When I want to feel comforted, I tend to go back to my childhood books that I feel very nostalgic about. Because the books that I read as an adult, they're not particularly comforting stories. Some of the books I read, they're often crime or murder stories or horror, so they're not really books you can be comforted by. It's more the opposite, it's books you get unsettled by. So yeah, I always go back to children's books when I want to feel comforted. Who taught you to be a reader? I had a lot of influences in my life. My parents and my older sister all love reading. Like I said, my parents used to read me stories. My mum, because she knew I struggled with reading as a child because of my dyslexia, she would buy me books on tape. So she would get me the book and then I'd have the matching tape. I remember specifically going to bookstores and they had these book series. I think it was called Animal Ark, and they had, because I loved animals, there were books all about animals and the titles were like kind of rhyming. I remember one in particular was Hedgehog in the Hall. She bought me the book and then I had the cassette tape, and I would listen to the cassette tape and then follow the book. So I guess my mum kind of got me into reading that way, and also my sister, she would buy books and tell me about them, and she's into like fantasy books, and she would tell me and I'd get really interested and want to read them myself. But then largely I think I made myself a reader because, as I said, as I got older I really wanted to get into reading myself. I wanted to improve my reading skills because by then I was like in college and I had a lot of coursework and a lot of writing to do, and I just wanted to improve my own reading skills. I was no longer like when you're in school you kind of get help with a lot of those. If you have dyslexia, you get a lot of help and assistance with classwork, whereas in college you didn't really. I didn't want to have assistance, I wanted to be able to do it on my own. So yeah, I really kind of pushed myself into reading, and then in doing that I just found a massive love for it. So yeah, I would say the answer to that question is myself, and I was influenced by my parents and my sister. The 7th question, describe your dream reading lounge. My dream reading lounge would be someplace very cosy with a nice comfy armchair to sit in, with a table next to me so I can drink my coffee or tea, maybe a fireplace, just something like really cosy, really homely. I love reading outside as well, so maybe my reading lounge would have a nice big window where I could sit next to read. I think that would be really nice. At the moment I love reading in my lounge next to a big window. I have quite nice views from my flat, so yeah, nice views where I can look out on woodland areas and stuff. So yeah, that would be my ideal reading lounge. Someplace very cosy and very warm and inviting and comfy. So the last question is, what book changed the way you act and see the world? This one I find quite hard to think about. The first thing that sprang to my mind was The Vegetarian by Han Kang, and that's because I'm a vegetarian myself, and I just found this book, it's a very intense book. It deals with mental health and eating disorders, and it's from 3 different people's perspectives. Each like part is from 3 different people, and I found it really interesting to see that point from 3 different people. It kind of showed the way, it kind of like teaches you, that 3 different people can have 3 completely different opinions and views on a certain subject, and the way people react to that. So it kind of reminds you that not everybody thinks the same, and not everybody feels the same about topics you know, people have hidden things they think about, you know, different subjects. So yeah, I thought that was a very interesting book. It just kind of reminded you of, you know, the different forms of how people view mental health, really, which is something I find very interesting. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say and all of the questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's kind of different to what I normally do. It's just kind of a chatty video. And if you have any questions, then please leave them down below. Or if anybody sees this video and decides to do a tag themselves, then let me know, and I'll check out your videos as well. So yeah, thank you for watching, and until next time, bye guys.